During a family cruise, my son-in-law pushed me into the sea and shouted, "Time to learn how to swim with sharks." After they rescued me, I only said 3 words. When we returned, I rushed to the bank, canceled the credit cards, sold the house, and vanished. When they called begging for money, I didn't answer. I never thought a family vacation could become a death sentence. At 65, I'd survived building a construction company from nothing. Raised a daughter as a single father. Weathered every storm life threw at me. But nothing prepared me for the moment my own son-in-law tried to murder me in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The cruise was Sarah's idea. "Dad, you've been working too hard," she said over dinner 3 weeks earlier, her voice sweet as honey. Glenn found this amazing deal on a 7-day Caribbean cruise, just the 3 of us. Quality family time. Glenn nodded enthusiastically, flashing that practiced smile that had charmed my daughter into marrying him 5 years ago. Back then, I thought he was good for her. I was wrong about a lot of things. The first 2 days were perfect. Too perfect. Glenn was attentive, asking about my business, my retirement plans. "You know, Gerald, you should really think about slowing down. You've earned it." The way he said it sent a chill down my spine, but I brushed it off. Maybe I was just getting paranoid in my old age. It was day 3 when everything changed. We were on the upper deck after dinner. Glenn suggested we get some fresh air away from the crowds. Sarah stayed behind, claiming she needed to call her friend Lisa. Strange, since she'd never mentioned Lisa before. Glenn and I walked to the railing. The water below looked black, infinite, hungry. "You know, Gerald," he said, his voice different now, colder. "Sarah and I have been talking about the future. About what happens when you're not around anymore. About the business, the house, the investments. About how much easier things would be if certain obstacles weren't in the way." Before I could process what he meant, Glenn's hands were on my back. Hard, violent. The push sent me tumbling over the railing. As I fell toward the black water, I heard him shout at the top of his lungs, "Help! Man overboard!" Gerald fell. But there was something else. Something he thought no one would hear over the wind and waves. "Time to learn to swim with the sharks, old man." The water hit me like a concrete wall. Ice cold, it knocked the breath from my lungs. I went under immediately, my clothes becoming anchors, dragging me down. For a terrifying moment, I thought this was it. This was how Gerald Morrison would die. The rescue took 27 minutes. 27 minutes of fighting waves, of water filling my lungs, of wondering if I'd ever see dry land again. When they finally pulled me out, the first face I saw was Glenn's. He was crying, holding Sarah as she sobbed into his chest. "Thank God you're alive, Gerald." His voice broke with what sounded like relief. But I saw something else in his eyes. Disappointment. As the ship's doctor wrapped me in heated blankets, I replayed every moment. Glenn's hands on my back. The deliberate push. The deliberate push. How quickly he'd appeared at the rescue scene, perfectly dry, perfectly composed. That's when I summoned what little strength I had left and whispered 3 words that made his face go white as the ship's hull. "I know everything." He jerked back like I'd slapped him. Sarah was adjusting my blankets and missed the exchange entirely. But Glenn heard every word. And in that moment, he knew his perfect plan had just become his worst nightmare. I decided to give him exactly what he wanted to see. A confused, grateful old man who didn't suspect a thing. "It's all so fuzzy," I said, letting my voice shake. "I remember looking at the stars, feeling dizzy. Everything after that is just dark water." Glenn's shoulders relaxed. But I remembered everything. Over the next 2 days, I began noticing what I'd been too trusting to see before. The way Sarah glanced at Glenn before answering my questions. How Glenn touched her arm whenever I mentioned feeling stronger. When he suggested a helicopter tour in St. Thomas, then swimming with dolphins, I recognized the pattern immediately. He was pushing for situations where accidents could happen. The confirmation came when I doubled back to their cabin and heard Sarah's voice through the slightly open door. "Can't keep trying the same approach. It's too risky now. People are watching." Glenn's response was muffled, but I caught fragments, "Running out of time. Won't get another chance like this." And then Sarah said the words that confirmed my worst fears. "We should have planned this better. Now he's suspicious." My own daughter. Not just a victim of his manipulation. Part of the plan. The next morning, I used the ship's business center to access my accounts. What I found made me physically ill. Over the past 4 months, nearly $23,000 had been withdrawn from my savings in small, careful amounts, using my debit card at ATMs near Sarah's apartment. Someone had also been accessing my business email, corresponding with clients and contractors, subtly positioning Glenn as my potential successor, the son-in-law ready to take over when I was ready to step down, or when I was dead. Buried in my deleted email folder was a draft message I'd never written, requesting information about updating my will to leave everything to Sarah and Glenn, citing concerns about my health. They hadn't just tried to kill me, they'd been preparing for my death for months. I changed every password, activated two-factor authentication on every account, and printed everything. Then I called Marcus Webb, my business partner of 15 years, and told him to review all recent company correspondence for emails I hadn't actually sent. The confrontation came over lunch on deck 12. Glenn chose a corner table, away from other passengers, where our conversation wouldn't be overheard. He tried his concerned voice. "Memory issues can be serious at your age, Gerald. The fall must have been traumatic. Do you remember much?" "My memory is crystal clear," I said. "In fact, I've been remembering a lot of things lately. Conversations I overheard. Documents I found. Phone calls that didn't quite make sense at the time. The kind of things that make a man wonder who he can really trust." Glenn's hand tightened around his beer bottle. "You're sounding a little paranoid." Then my phone rang. Marcus, calling about a contract that included Glenn's name as incoming project manager, placed there by an email I'd never sent. I watched the color drain from Glenn's face as Marcus spoke. After I hung up, Glenn was staring at his hands. "Gerald, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," I said calmly. "The question is how much of it would be true." For a moment, I saw the real man behind the mask. Cold. Calculating. Desperate. "You don't understand the pressure we're under," he whispered. "Sarah's been struggling since she lost her job. I've got debts. So you decided to kill me for my money." The words hung in the air. Glenn's mouth opened and closed. Around us, passengers laughed and chatted, oblivious to the confession happening at our corner table. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," he finally whispered. "The fall was supposed to look accidental. You weren't supposed to survive." Present. There it was. "And Sarah?" I asked. His silence told me everything I needed to know. The ship docked in Miami at 7 in the morning. By 7:30, I was in a taxi heading to First National Bank. My personal banker Margaret Chen was waiting, documents already prepared. Every account connected to Sarah was closed. New accounts opened at a different branch. Credit cards canceled. Next came Patricia Holbrook, my attorney of 28 years, who helped me restructure my entire financial life. A new will leaving everything to the Morrison Foundation for Adult Literacy, named after my late wife. A trust managed anonymously through Patricia's firm. And the house, the one where Sarah had gone through my private papers, where Glenn had counted my money like a vulture, listed for immediate private sale. By 6 that evening, I was invisible. The house sold to a cash buyer for $450,000. My business sold to Marcus for fair market value. Bank accounts transferred to institutions Sarah and Glenn had never heard of. A new cell phone, a new number, known only to Patricia and Marcus. I moved into a modest furnished apartment on the other side of town. As I sat in my new living room, eating takeout and watching the sunset through windows they would never find, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The first call came 11 days later. "Dad." Sarah's voice was small, broken. "All our accounts are frozen. The credit cards aren't working. There's a sold sign on your house. I don't understand what's going on." I said nothing, just listened to her breathe. Over the next 3 weeks, she called 17 more times. Each message revealed more of their crumbling world. Glenn fired for forging documents using my company letterhead, their apartment facing eviction. The cars repossessed. Sarah working 2 jobs. Glenn's debts to credit card companies and payday loan services consuming everything they had left. Then came the call that broke my heart. "Dad, Glenn tried to hurt himself last night. He took pills. Said he couldn't live with what we'd done." A long pause. "I know what we did was wrong. I know we hurt you in ways that probably can't be forgiven. But Dad, I'm scared. When did we become the kind of people who would hurt someone we love? When did we become so desperate that murder seemed like a solution?" For the first time, I heard genuine remorse. Not manipulation, not bargaining, real recognition of what they'd done. I drove to the cemetery where my wife Margaret was buried. Knelt beside her headstone and told her everything. "I hope I did the right thing, Maggie," I whispered. "I hope our little girl can find her way back to the person she used to be. But I can't be the one to save her. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way." As I drove away, my phone rang one more time. I answered. "Hello, Sarah." The sharp intake of breath told me she hadn't expected it. "Dad. Please don't hang up. I know I don't deserve it, but just listen." She was crying softly. "I'm sorry for everything. For the money, for the lies, for standing there and watching Glenn hurt you. I'm sorry for becoming someone I don't recognize. A pause. I know I destroyed our family, Dad. But please don't let Glenn's mistakes destroy you too. You deserve to be happy. To find peace. Even if that peace doesn't include us. That was goodbye. Not just to Sarah and Glenn, but to the man I used to be. 2 years have passed. I live in a cottage 6 blocks from the water on a quiet stretch of North Carolina shoreline, where retired fishermen sell their catch from weathered docks, and the pace of life moves with the tides. The rent is $450 a month. It's less than I used to spend on dinner for 3 people. It's more than enough. I work part-time at Garrett's Bait and Tackle, helping customers and minding the register for $12 an hour. Nobody asks what I did before I came here. Nobody wants anything from me except honest work. Last month, a man in an expensive suit walked into the shop. "I'm looking for Gerald Morrison," he said, with the tone rich people use when talking to servants. "A businessman from Florida. Built a construction company. His family is looking for him." "Don't know anyone by that name," I said, continuing to arrange lures on their rack. He left a card. "Private investigator." On the back, in neat handwriting, "Family seeks reconciliation." I tore it up and called Patricia. "Change everything," I told her. "New trust documents, new accounts. And if anyone asks about Gerald Morrison, tell them he died in a boating accident 2 years ago." "Are you sure? That's a pretty permanent step." I looked out the kitchen window at my garden, at the sunset painting the sky in impossible colors, at the simple, honest life I'd built from the wreckage of betrayal. "Patricia, Gerald Morrison did die 2 years ago. He drowned in the Atlantic Ocean when his family pushed him overboard. The man you're talking to now is someone else entirely. S&Pu. 2 weeks later, she sent me a death certificate. The Morrison Foundation received his entire estate. Gerald Morrison was officially dead. And I had never felt more alive. This morning I woke up in my cottage by the sea, made coffee I didn't have to worry about being poisoned, and walked to a job where my coworkers don't want to kill me for money. Tonight I'll tend my garden, read another chapter of the mystery novel I started yesterday, and fall asleep without wondering if tomorrow brings another attempt on my life. The 3 words I whispered to Glenn in that ship's medical bay were a warning shot. But the real victory wasn't in those words. The real victory was in understanding that I didn't need to defeat them to win. I just needed to disappear so completely that they could never touch me again. Sarah and Glenn wake up every morning to the consequences they created for themselves, still learning the hardest lesson of all, that some mistakes can't be undone. Some trust can't be rebuilt. And some people will vanish from your life so completely that you'll spend the rest of your days wondering if they ever really existed at all. I exist. I'm just not theirs to find anymore. And that, I've discovered, is the most perfect peace of all.